Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's episode of Zombies and Coffee. This week we talk about Season 8, Episode 8, How It's Gotta Be. This book is filled with notes about many things, but now it also includes about 6 to 10 pages of notes on this week's episode of Walking Dead because it was a big episode. And yes, I've said this before, a 90-minute episode is really closer to like a 50-minute episode because those commercials were incredibly long, with about 4 to 5 minutes of commercials in between each section of the show. But a lot happened. Yes, we have a lot of filler, and yes, we have a huge development in the show. So, if you have not watched the mid-season finale of Season 8 yet, stop right now, just pause this, go watch it, come on back, or just come on back tomorrow, because there are plenty of spoilers inside, and my mind is blown, because what happened is a game changer. Okay. We're going to get into it now, so this is your last chance to look away. Well, we were promised a big shakeup was going to happen, and well, we definitely got that big shakeup. Now, I did notice something, and I'm not going to say I called it, but I kind of called it. Now, I didn't do the past 2 episodes of Zombies and Coffee for The Walking Dead. I was busy. Things happened, so I didn't have a chance to get them done. So, I couldn't tell you that I was calling this. But I kind of saw it coming, and we're going to get into it. And now I'm going to reveal what happened. So, one more time, if you have not watched the episode yet, it's your own fault right now. Carl got bit. Now, this is going to piss off a lot of people, and it has, and a lot of people are probably really happy because Chandler Riggs, a lot of people did not like him. They thought he was a bad actor. He was a bad portrayal of Carl, and you know what? He wasn't that good. To be honest, I mean, he's gotten better as he got older, but as a kid, he wasn't that good. And yeah, he started as a child actor, so they're kids. He was just a child. They had no idea the show was going to blow up to be this big. But they maybe could have got someone a little more charismatic. But we're going to dig into these notes right now. We already know how the story was going to start out this week because last week we saw from the perch, the Saviors got out, and then we already saw the trailer for this week's episode where the junkies, they ran away. Go figure. They're cowards. They've said it before. They take. So it was an opportunity for them to take any longer, so they just left. They thought they were going to get this opportunity to seize a chunk of the pie after the Saviors were gone. They're not gone. They ran away, leaving Rick in jeopardy. And of course, badass Carol comes around and saves the day along with Jerry. Now, we have our bookends where we're doing the face shots and everything. Some of them kind of mean some things, some of them kind of don't mean some things, but really, this is a little bit of filler. There's not much that this actually does besides show us the urgency in each of these 3 characters getting to these 3 locations. But they promise us something big, and then Jerry's car gets smashed. I thought Jerry was gonna go, because Jerry's kind of become a bit of a fan favorite. He started off as just, Ezekiel's bodyguard, the big guy with the axe, but he's really a charismatic character. He's really kind of taken off. They did a lot of character development with him, and we know if you're not a main character and they start to develop your character, you usually die. So, this was kind of where I thought the show was going to go. They're going to kill Jerry. We know at this point, it was not. It was Carl that got bitten. We don't see this until the very end that he's actually bitten, but we've seen him acting a little strange throughout the entire episode, starting with the scene of him up in his room, writing letters. It's kind of like this solemn thing. What's he doing? Why is Carl writing letters to his dad? He finds that old letter that Enid wrote him when she was going to run away, and then he went and saved her, and it's foreshadowing for what's going to happen at the end of the episode, but unless you're eagle-eyed, you're not picking up on these clues that Carl is the one that's the big person that's going to die. Because at this point, still thinking it's Jerry, even though I called what was going to happen an episode or two ago. And that was this scene right here.
You okay? Yeah.
Now, they do a really good job at cutting really quickly. It was the second walker, freeze frame right here, this guy. He's the one that actually bit Carl. He threw him to the side, grabbed the other walker, and then we see this other one coming back up, and it cuts back to Sadiq. So we don't actually see the bite happen, but then we see Carl. He shoots them. He eliminates the last two walkers. He kind of sits up. He has that, pardon my language, but that oh shit moment. Like he knew it was done. He knew it was over. And then you see it again when he kind of gets up. He turns. He looks at his side. They're not showing it. He's already covered in the blood from the walkers and from the elk or the deer, whatever it was that was dead behind him. When I watched that episode, I said Carl got bit. And then 2 episodes later, nothing happened. So I was like, guess I was wrong. I was wrong again, because one of my other predictions, the reason that Rick was all distraught and crying was because he had a broken leg. Because this is what happens in the fight against Negan in the All War. He defeats Negan, but Negan breaks his leg, and he's in a massive amount of pain, and he ends up walking with a cane for the rest of his life, and we see that cane in that flashback, flash forward, flashback. The gray-haired old man Rick scenes, but we also see Carl in there. So now we know that I was wrong, and that wasn't just the future. It was actually maybe Rick's dreaming of how the future should have been, but it does entail a very big piece of what's going to come in the future. But Carl was a huge piece of this puzzle of what's going to come. Yes, they have already said that they are not going to run the show totally parallel to the books. Yes, the basic plot outline's the same, but we've already seen this when they killed off Andrea really early on. We just recently lost Andrea in the books, and I'll admittedly so I'm a few behind. I don't know how many, maybe 2 or 3, but it's maybe 5 issues or so back, 4 or 5 issues, that Andrea actually finally died in the comic book series. So we already know they're willing to kill off major characters to shake things up. But Carl is like this invincible Carl. He's got shot in the stomach. He got shot in the eye. It's kind of convenient that his first mortal wound, he got shot through a deer, and now he gets bit on top of a dead deer, and that's what finally does him in. So it's kind of like bringing it all the way back around. I wouldn't be surprised if the walker that bit him's name was Otis. Now we jump on over to Oceanside, and we already know that nothing good comes of people going to Oceanside, especially when men go to Oceanside, because all of their men were taken and killed, because that's what they told us early on when Tara first went there. The Saviors took all their men and boys and killed them all, so then all the women and girls just left in the middle of the night. So the Saviors have no idea that they're still alive or where they're at. But they were gonna kill Tara, and Tara just narrowly escaped, and then Rick went back and took all their guns and really made them mad. I don't know what Aaron was thinking going back. It wasn't a smart move, and then Enid goes ahead and kills their leader. So, I don't know what's gonna happen here. Aaron plays a pretty big role later on with another major character. Enid is kind of like the Sophia from the books because Sophia doesn't get killed like she does in the books. Wait, Sophia doesn't die in the books. She's still alive in the comic books. She got killed way early on. Was that season 1, season 2 of the show? The show's been going on for a while now. I'm starting to confuse myself. What happened? What season? So Enid's kind of taking that role of Sophia, and possibly another character that was going to come in for the next threat, but Carl was a big part of that, and now he's going to die. And we're going to talk a little bit about the departure of Chandler Riggs period at the end, but we're going to run through the show first. But back to Oceanside. I'm very interested to see how they play this out. Enid killed the grandmother, not Aaron, and she was doing it to save Aaron because the grandmother was about to kill Aaron. So I have a feeling that Aaron's going to be able to talk their way out of this, and Aaron and Enid are going to get out of this situation. I did like that they stopped at the Roanoke distillery to get them a gift, and Roanoke is the lost colony of Roanoke, and Oceanside is kind of like this lost colony of women that nobody really knows exists or what happened to them. So I think that was the play there, where how they left in the middle of the night after the Saviors took their men, they just left. And I think that's why it was Roanoke Distillery that they stopped at, because I think that's the play that they're doing there, that they just disappeared in the middle of the night, much like Roanoke. The inhabitants just disappeared, just completely gone, completely left and abandoned. I think that's the play right there. Now, zipping on back to Alexandria here, Carl is acting funny this entire time, and nobody notices. He's not looking well. I mean, the kid he got shot in the eye, and he's got an eye patch on, but as far as Invincible Carl goes, he's not looking good, and nobody notices. Michonne's having this conversation with him as he's going to bring Sadiq the food, and she's questioning the fact that he's going in the sewers, but not the fact that he's sweating to death and he looks like he's about to collapse. But then Negan shows up and starts blowing up Alexandria. And right around when Negan shows up at Alexandria, we cut over to the scene of the Hilltop people racing to the sanctuary, because they still have not been informed yet that the sanctuary was in fact freed by Eugene. And that's all they'll keep saying is Eugene. Eugene had a plan. Eugene did it. Eugene's master plan. And you hear the opera music, the fat lady playing in the background. So Eugene did something with the music and got the walkers to go away. I'm sure it had something to do with Daryl crashing the truck into the building. We'll probably see that later on. I'm sure in the second half of the season we'll have a flashback and see how Eugene actually did it, because they mentioned it enough of times that they're gonna show us it. It wasn't just this is how Eugene did it and just to brush past it. They actually just kept saying Eugene. It was Eugene. Eugene did it. So they're gonna do a flashback later on and show us how Eugene got the walkers to go away. But right here is again where I think Jerry's the one that's gonna get it. They open the door. Jerry's still alive. He rolls on out. Lovable Jerry's on his knees, much like Glenn was on his knees in front of Maggie when Negan bashed his brains in. Jerry's all bloody. He's got hit by a car, so he's all jacked up. They got a gun to his head. They take all their weapons. Simon flexes his muscles and shoots Beardman in the backseat of the car. The thing that really gets me with this whole scene is they take all of their guns that they have on them. He lays out the whole plan, what's happening, the kingdom's going down, Alexandria's going down, but you guys, you're the breadbasket of our little civilization, so why don't you scurry on back and start watering our crops so we can get fed when we're ready to get back up on our feet, because we got a lot of work to do. And they just let them go. They didn't escort them back. They know they have more guns. This is a terrible move on the Savior's part. Why? Why? Just why would they just let them go? Didn't escort them there. They didn't send a group of Saviors with them. They didn't go first. They just let them go. Now, they don't know they have prisoners, but they know they have guns. It was just a bad move on the Savior's part, and now you just pissed off Maggie. And you don't want to make her mad because she's Maggie, and you don't want to make Maggie mad. And another sidebar I want to mention is that how long has Maggie been pregnant now? Shouldn't she be showing? It's been months now since they tried to get her to the hilltop and Glenn got killed and now she's in charge of the hilltop, and I can't follow the timeline exactly because all these time jumps really confused me at how much time has physically passed, but I would say a considerable amount of time, and she should be really pregnant right now, and she's not at all. Then we head on over to the kingdom, where all of the saviors there, led by Gavin, the easiest going of all of the savior lieutenants, and definitely the right one for this scenario because it makes it so much easier for Ezekiel to pull one over on them. He escapes them, he evades them, he becomes the king he needs. So really, what the saviors did was reignite Ezekiel in his passion. He's no longer moping. He has the chain that he used to use for Shiva, which he uses to save his people. So really, Shiva is still protecting the kingdom because now her chain just kept the saviors from going after them and capturing them. And this is when Carol gets to the kingdom and sees Ezekiel smiling. She saved him because she's Carol and she's awesome. The one point, we don't see this till closer to the end, but we're just going to wrap up the kingdom section now, is Morgan. Morgan is walking around outside and listening to what's going on. So I think Morgan is going to play a pivotal role here at saving Ezekiel, and I think he's going to sneak in there, pull his crazy Morgan stuff, probably kill Gavin and, if not all, most of the saviors that are there, and then I think he's going to realize he needs to go back to his Zen moment, and this is when Morgan is going to part The Walking Dead and go to Fear the Walking Dead, or as Lenny James put it himself on The Talking Dead, Fear of the Walking Dead, where he was visibly upset the fact that he was being moved over to Fear the Walking Dead. So I think this is going to be his big hurrah before he departs the show, and he's going to go on his soul-seeking mission to become Zen Morgan again, and that's going to be the reason he leaves. And they did say Morgan still has a whole lot of role to play in The Walking Dead, so I don't know if they're going to use that as like flashback scenes or if they're going to eventually bring him back. And I hope they do, because I like the Morgan character. I just hope they don't bring anyone from Fear the Walking Dead to The Walking Dead, because last season, was that season 3 of Fear, was pretty good, but 1 and 2, they were terrible. Which is why there are no Zombies and Coffee series about them. And back to Coral over at Alexandria. Negan rolls in, and this is where we have our actual conversation taking place, where Carl tells Negan to kill him, and we all know Negan's got a soft spot for Mr. Carl now, and at the end, we find out the reason he's willing to die is the fact that he's already going to die. And when he honestly says, no, I don't want to die, we know that Carl doesn't want to die. He didn't have a death wish. He wasn't hoping to get bitten by a zombie in a minor melee out trying to bring Sadiq some food and bring him back into Alexandria. But this also shows us that these little minor scuffles that they have with the walkers could still turn bad. Now, still at this point, the living obviously are more of a threat than the dead, but the dead are still a threat, and they just took a major character away from us. But we know this whole scene with Carl up on the wall is just a distraction, so Daryl and Michonne and Rosita and Tara, I think it was, all of them can escape to get on the backside to just kind of ambush the rest of the saviors, and the rest of the people can escape into what we now know they went to the sewer system where Sadiq was hiding, and Carl had mapped this whole thing out, most likely when he was trying to rescue Sadiq. So we know this was a whole distraction, and then... But before all of that happens, we have a little bit of insight into Negan's background again, with Carl on top of the wall. He says to Negan, "Is this what you wanted to be?" And it's a throwback to Negan's past. We got a little bit of the background on him when he was with Gabriel in the trailer. We know he had a wife that he didn't treat so well and cheated on. And now we also know that he has a job where he worked with kids. And there is an AMC trailer that had a little bit of Negan's background where he was a basketball coach, like a high school basketball coach. So they didn't really, that wasn't out there, wasn't really publicized too much, but we know that that was there. So that's kind of Negan's past, and we know he has a connection with Carl. So we're not only bringing up this little piece of Negan's past, because when Carl said that to Negan, he took pause. It didn't just roll off him like just about everything does. He stopped and thought about it. And although we know that this is a distraction and Carl is dying and he was willing to give up his own life to save his people, I honestly think that Carl thought he could reason and rationalize with Negan, because Carl's not stupid. He knows that there's a bond between him and Negan because he was there. He felt the bond forming. Negan treated him like a normal person. He didn't treat him like Rick Grimes' son or the kid that got shot in the face. He treated him like a normal person. Yeah, he made fun of the hole in his head, but that's Negan's personality. He makes fun of everything anyway. So Carl kind of appreciated the fact that Negan just treated him as a person, not as a kid, not as Carl Grimes' son, and not as the kid that got shot in the face. So I honestly thought that he could rationalize with him. But in this moment, when Negan takes pause, it's when Carl runs away. And then they start unleashing on Alexandria, blowing it all up. Carl falls. We see he's got a little, I think he's bleeding on his left leg, but it's not the injury. He's like limping and physically not in good shape. So it's not that fall that did it. We know this already, but at this time, we don't know yet. Now at some point in here, we jump back to the sanctuary where Eugene finally does the right thing and tells Dr. Carson and Gabriel that the guard is indisposed and that there's a car and they can get back to the hilltop. But are they going to make it? Because now we know that Simon and his group were en route to the hilltop. Or are they going to go to the kingdom? Are they going to go to Alexandria? Are they going to go back to the sanctuary? Is Dr. Carson going to escape? What will happen next? But it's another side story that happened in here, so it's not super important to what happened, but it did. Next, this was a hell yeah moment. Dwight leads the Saviors into the trap, and Daryl and Rosita and Michonne and Tara, they take them out. And yes, Dwight turns on his own men and shoots them. He gets found out by the neck tattoo girl that I can't remember her name. She shoots him. But the hell yeah moment, and I literally went, hell yeah, was when Daryl grabs that vest and rips it off him. He actually grabbed his head and pushed his head forward and grabs the vest and pulls it off of him. He was so violent about it because Tara and Daryl absolutely hate Dwight. And I think they might kill him. I think Tara might kill Dwight later on. I think that Tara's going to finish him off because remember, Dwight's the one that killed her girlfriend by putting the arrow through the back of her head, out her eye. The way Abraham died in the comic books, that's the way that Tara's girlfriend died in the show. And Dwight did that. The bolt, not the arrow. I'm sorry. But Daryl's got his vest back. I've been waiting since Dwight first started wearing it for Daryl to get it back. I knew he was going to get it back. I just didn't know when. And yes, that was my favorite part of this entire episode, was when Daryl got the vest back. And this is where we find out that Carl is a magician. He's running back to the manhole cover that he was at originally in the beginning, and two Saviors see him. He throws a smoke bomb, but if you notice, Carl's here, the manhole cover's here, the Saviors are over here. He throws a smoke bomb right here, so the Saviors walked past the manhole cover to get where Carl is, but he somehow got behind them, opened a heavy metal grate, got inside and closed it in seconds without them seeing or hearing it, and he got around them. And the smoke wasn't A, that thick, and B, it was in front, it wasn't covering, it was in front of the manhole cover, so it wasn't even covering the manhole cover. But Carl's a magician, so maybe he'll magically make the zombie bite go away, and we'll get to see old man Carl. And now we're starting to wrap it up. We have Michonne losing it that Alexandria is being destroyed, so she goes in to start taking out Saviors, and she's brutalizing and butchering a Savior. But before we get to that, we see Rick, that pulling a Rick Grimes, just going in without thinking, head first, full steam ahead. He goes to his own house. Now, Rick, why would you go to your own house? You know Negan's going to be there. Of course he is. A fight ensues, and this is where Negan says these words to Rick, where, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of, I'm going to make Carl my right-hand man. In a couple of years, he's going to be my number one. And Rick don't like that. They start to fight, and that's when Rick grabs Lucille and starts to hit Negan in the face with it, and Negan hit his line, don't you touch her. But after this melee and Rick falls through the window, gets Michonne, they get down inside the sewer system, and this is where we finally get the reveal of Carl being bitten. We get Rick freaking out, going back to the scene where I thought it was Rick that broke his leg. He was in pain. Nope, this is Rick mourning the death of Carl. He either just buried him or Carl just died. Now we're out of coffee, but we're at the end of the episode here. So, a few things of note that I want to discuss briefly is that last season, I believe, Chandler Riggs, all of their contracts were up, and Chandler Riggs didn't want to do the show anymore. He wanted to be a normal kid. So when he got bit, and I saw that at first, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is his way out. I literally went to the books of the faces and said, when you want to get off the show and your contract's up, because I thought it was Chandler Riggs wanted to be off the show. Turns out he did re-sign a contract for 3 years, had just bought a house down by where they film, and apparently his dad does tours. I watched the whole thing. Some guy was ranting on about this earlier. Chandler Riggs' father does like tours of Walking Dead filming locations, and his father was really mad and blasting things on social media. So apparently they didn't see this coming. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, because again, all of this was there, that Chandler Riggs didn't want to do the show anymore. He grew up, he kind of wanted to do other things, be a normal kid again, but then he signed a contract and bought a house. I don't know. I'm glad that they killed off Carl. I like Carl's character in the books. He's badass. He's really important part of the storyline. But if the storyline follows the books identically, there's no point in watching the show. Again, they killed off Andrea seasons ago, and she was Rick's girlfriend up until just a couple months ago, maybe weeks ago or whatever, when they finally killed her character off. So they completely changed that story arc when they killed Andrea, and they brought Michonne in, and Carol died, and Sophia's still alive. So Sophia died, and Carol's still going, and Michonne was the love interest of Ezekiel in the books, and now Carol's. Everything's different, and I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for the show because it's going to keep the show fresh. A lot of people are mad that they killed off Chandler Riggs because he's a very important character. I'm sure a lot of people are happy because a lot of people weren't happy with Chandler Riggs' portrayal of Carl. And all the Carl memes are probably going to stop now because I hate those. I find them super annoying and obnoxious. So let me know in the comments down below. Is it a good thing that they killed off Carl? Is it a good thing that the story is going to be vastly different now from the actual comic book story? Are you mad that they killed Carl? Do you think that it's because Chandler Riggs wanted to leave the show and this was just them letting him leave the show? Or do you think that this was totally blindsided, that Chandler Riggs had no idea until he got the scripts that they're going to kill off Carl? Let's have a conversation down there. And do not forget to turn on your notifications because February 11th, we come back from break. Good night.